there are strong attribution of intelligence level to the masses. What does it mean, right? We think that there are massive commercialization and media who simply attribute the people who have the personal success in the current status quo to having the same, to have higher intelligence level to the ordinary people, right? We think that is extremely problematic because when you have this kind of commercialization and media, how they're perceiving you is that you look smart and also you talk smart. Without giving you senses that if you are living in a poor area where you do not have this kind of resources, you can never achieve that level. We think this kind of commercialization and exposure to that is extremely harmful because it actually provides a wrong attribution of your success at the end of the day. And actually it changes the allocation of resources, which gives the government have no incentive to actually use their resources and distribute them to the areas who actually need them. And we see that in the current status quo, there's no alternative being provided for this kind of people to voice out, simply because they are being born into a powerless status, which means that they don't have the capital, they don't have the means to expose their problems, and also more on that. But before we move on to the next part, yes.
The existence of capital that is unjustly like
I think the existing problem in all cases that a lot of times when they have this kind of extreme commercialization and exposure to that, a lot of times the government simply do not have this kind of incentive, and also they also actively ignore the structural reasons behind this kind of disparities. For example, the reason for them to have to fail to have a success in your work and the application is not because they are not smart enough. It is because they don't have the resources and the government do not want to give them, right? And move on to the next point about how in our case it is going to incentivize people to work hard. Right? Firstly, we think when we are going to do that, it is more likely for us to have a change in the people's mindset, which means that when people realize that they have the equal amount of capability to reach something at the end of the day, and also to achieve to have personal success at the end of the day, it is very crucial for them, right? When realizing this kind of thing, it is more likely for them to enjoy to utilize the resources that they have and also working hard to make something, right? And the criteria of success in our paradigm is going to change. The criteria is not based on the family background you're born in, the racial identity that you're born in, or what kind of gender you're born in, right? We think the criteria of success is more likely to happen of how you're going to utilize the resources to the maximum extent and how hardworking you are, which means that it is more likely for you to participate in the application process. You're going to participate in the politics, in a lot of things to change that, to have this kind of self-advocacy and have more exposure to that. It's more likely, and more on that, we also feel like it is more likely for the media and also how this kind of commercialization in their paradigm to change. What do we mean by that, right? We think the paradigm and also narrative that it is more likely to happen in our paradigm is that the media is going to say that, well, the people that currently living in the society are all the same and have the same capability of achieving something. And the media and the interpretation of that is that people will actually have institutional help out of it, which means that people will have more support coming from society and also from government to that, right? So on the last point about how it actually going to initiate substantial changes in the policy, right? We think firstly it is going to wipe out the biological standard and the wrong attribution out of it, which means that it is more likely for the government to give more exposure to the structural problem behind the disparity in the current status quo. When they know that everyone has the same capability of achieving something, they know that the problem existing in the status quo is not about the biological feature, not about their intelligence level. It's more likely for them to realize that there are disparities between the genders and that cause a lot of problems. For example, we see that when Indian government when a lot of Indian parents do not choose to allocate the resources to the girls that in their family, I think it's more likely to change in our paradigm. And people believe that those girls have the same capability as the boys to achieve something and also be successful in their education and work. And also we see that it is also going to empower the racial minorities. For example, when in the status quo, when people are actively portraying those African Americans to be intelligently inferior to the rest of people, we think that claim is never going to happen. And the impact of that is actually we are going to incentivize the government to solve this problem, which means that more likely the government will going to allocate more resources in the poor areas, in areas with interracial enclaves with more racial minorities. We think with more resources being investing and also the self-actualization of how they have the same capability of creating something, we think the change is more likely to happen in our paradigm, which the opposition paradigm will never happen. So above all, very proud to propose.
Ladies and gentlemen, in opening opposition, we say that opening government is undermining the significance of their own proposal. Why? Because imagine starting today, the researchers within CDC say that it's researching cure for cancer suddenly is only as smart as me, because I hope I'm in the literature. But that's basically what's happening in their world. It happens in a large scale and a massive scale throughout the world. Noticing that we live in a world where today we have dire problems which can only be solved by the brightest minds within our world. We think that their policy, by making a world where suddenly someone has only this average IQ, say I don't know, 105 or something, I don't think that would be something that's a realistic world to be in, and we think that it would be a worse world to be in because we can't solve a lot of problems that we have urgently right now. But before that, a specific response was this, because they said it's very weird in terms of saying that the whole problems and inequalities in the world happens because there is this glorification of knowledge. That knowledge is the most important thing, and everyone based their superiority on others based on knowledge. We think that's not the case. Because most of the time it is not that. Most of the time it's basically the initial capital you have to begin with, rather than whether or not you're smart or not. Sure, there might be some additional amount of harm in terms of saying that this capital is justly acquired because of knowledge, but most of the people don't care about that. They simply care about them being richer and more powerful. And also, a lot of them are not derived by things that are intellectual in nature, but cultural in nature. If you talk about racial and gender divide, for instance, in a lot of developing countries, and even in developed countries, a lot of them are not based on things like IQ, although there are the debate about like sometimes some people say that men are more smart than women. These things exist, but in the face, in terms of the majority of the discrimination that happens in terms of race and gender, does not happen in terms of intellectuality, but based on things like cultural mythology, in terms of you feel that you are superior race, or in religious scriptures and things like that. I think that is the dominant forces in this world. I don't see how their policy necessarily will change that, because in the status quo we still have people like that are smart in terms of coming from minorities. Doesn't really change it, because people inherently want to keep their privilege, and people inherently want to keep their status, and they will use it by other dissemination and glorification, not of knowledge, but even further dissemination of things like culture, which are more often more oppressive in nature. So that's response towards their case. Now, on to our case. We say that the problems that we have in this world have very inherent structures that makes it impossible to be solved in a world where people are unable to reach a very high intelligence, ladies and gentlemen. Even if there are growth of intelligence in that side of the house, we think that it will take too long, because it's also something that's urgent and needs time to be solved. So first of all, let's talk about the nature of these problems. First is the nature of the problem is that it's new and constantly evolving. What am I talking about? These are new and urgent problems like global warming, in terms of if we don't do anything about this, and like we will have a point of no return. Say that we don't stop the rate of global warming by this year, some scientists say that we will reach a point of no return when it will not be fixed. The problem is a lot of the solutions that exist in the status quo simply acts to try to limit the effects of global warming and to try to slow it down. We see because of political reasons and because a lot of scientific limitations, right now we're nowhere near the rate of being able to stop the heating down. US is coming out of the Paris agreements and things like that. It means that we need new solutions and out-of-the-box solutions in terms of things like trying to reverse the climate change, in particular things like some ideas coming from the private scientists today, things like trying to artificially cool the earth through weather modification or trying to thicken the ozone layers to make it more have more ability, no thank you, and things like that. We think that this is crucial because it needs people to be able to come out of the box solutions. The problem is the nature of the brains of people that are within the average intelligence is that they usually learn not based on things like that is innovation in nature, but only by perceived knowledge, ladies and gentlemen, because that's why majority of people are not innovators, but majority of people are workers, ladies and gentlemen. This is because the way that the brain works is harder for them to actually try to input innovation, innovative and out-of-the-box solutions because they rely on perceived knowledge rather. No, thank you. We also think that a lot of the problems needs to adapt very quickly. If we talk about a lot of the diseases that are threatening the world, they are usually very evolving in nature because of the mutations of the particular bacteria. It means that you need to be able to respond quickly in terms of trying to come up with new solutions. That's why we don't use things like vaccines in particular kinds of bacteria that are most dangerous and most mutating, but you do things like genetically modify this particular bacteria to make sure that they do not reproduce and things like that. These kinds of solutions are not things that are that can be slowly made, but they need to be quickly made. The problem that they need to be adapted to because they're constantly evolving. The problem is the way that the average intelligence works. They often rely on things like habit, because the ability for us to create neural networks are basically based on habits. And only if you have like a much larger amygdala than the natural person, like Albert Einstein, for instance, are you able to not only rely on habit, but to be able to make quick adjustments towards how your brain works. And this is something that's very particularly important on our side of the heart and cannot be achieved on that side. We need these people to stay, but these people will suddenly be only as smart as me in this proposal. I can close it.
Is it possible to develop your creativity and innovation by cooperation and hard work?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about this exactly now. Because we think that it's often massive and complex. And the problem is you cannot simply cooperate by you only focusing on one thing and only having a specific knowledge, because you still have to have a bare minimum standard in terms of knowing other knowledges. Because that's why a lot of the scientists say in CERN, for instance, even though they might specifically major in astrophysics, for instance, but they also still have enough knowledge to be able to have a coherent conversation with someone else that is coming from chemistry, for instance, and things like that. It means you need this base minimum to be able to have multiple expertise or at least multiple general knowledge in terms of these things. The problem is the way that people work usually in terms of how they study and how they perceive knowledge, usually they can only focus on one because the way that the average brain works is they make sure that they specialize on something and make neural networks specifically on that particular topic. The problem is when we no longer have people who are able to have multiple neural networks and multiple habits in their brains, we can no longer have that cooperation that you want because you don't have the basic knowledge. And we can't rely on super genius people that don't even need cooperation in this particular place and can have multi-discipline solutions. That's why we think that this is something very important. But lastly, this has very small margin of error, ladies and gentlemen. If you talk about bacteria, the moment that you have a wrong vaccine regimen, you might be even strengthening these particular bacteria because they become invincible towards the vaccine. It means that you cannot make any mistakes in this. We cannot risk people in general collaborating and trying to becoming smarter in that side of the house because this is something that's very risky and the world might collapse because of that. Under this is very urgent that you oppose this motion. Very proud to oppose.
Opposition has been very assertive to assert that the fact that you are able to provide climate change solutions is because you are very smart, right? We want to challenge that kind of very stuff because we tell you a lot of times you are useful not only because you are really, really smart, but only because of all the hard work you are devoted
to that. But the society are willing to ask you to believe that because you're only useful when you're really smart. We think that kind of narrative disenfranchises the majority of the people, and they only value smartness at the end of the day. Several things in my speech. First, I'm going to prove to you why this status quo has why this kind of disparity in intellectual capacity has brought more harms in the society towards these individuals, and why we are most impactful in terms of majority of people, and how we can initiate substantial change in terms of changing the ability to maximize the possibility to self-actualization and make some real changes at the end of the day, right? So before most of the rebuttals will be integrated, and most self-rebuttals will come at the start. So firstly, why we save them from the trap of harms that a lot of people are actually suffering in the status quo, right? We think that disparity in intellectual capacity is actually a lot more harder to accept than the family background disparity, right? So the opening opportunity said that the fact that a lot of things still based on other factors, for example, how rich you are to succeed at the end of the day. We tell you that is not true, because when we tell you you are not successful because you're not smart enough, you're actually posing this kind of biological deficiency towards one's character, right? And we think a lot of the time, this kind of norm is actually perpetuated by a lot of other norms. For example, in terms of patriarchy, when families are only to invest in a lot of capital because they think that boys are smarter, or in terms of the economic disparity, when the government is only to invest in certain regions that they think they are historically smart, like the white people, right? I think these kind of norms were perpetuated by these kind of things that are extremely traumatic to the poor people themselves in terms of self-perceived capability, right? I think further on, these kind of norms are also perpetuated and harming the poor people in terms of commercialization. When they constantly trap poor people in terms of you should buy this kind of new powder in order to make your kids smarter, because that's the only yardstick for to judge whether your kids are really smart at the end of the day. And it only changes the success mechanism because they tell you Harvard is actually a school that's full of smart people, and that's the reason why you are not in Harvard is because you are really dumb, right? I think this kind of success mechanism in terms of the yardstick of IQ is very detrimental to the people which they provide no alternatives, right? I think a lot of people, white poor people, do not even have the incentive access to change their lives because at first they do not think they are capable enough, and second they have no incentive to access the resources. But under our paradigm, we are guaranteed that both of them, right? So firstly, why we are going to change the yardstick for majority of people, right? Looking at the fact that when we perceive someone is really successful, we think it's going to change people's perception of success, right? For example, when we are seeing Mark Zuckerberg creating Facebook, when we are seeing Einstein achieving a lot of scientific resources, we are more likely to believe that they are not really because of they are smart in nature, but believe that they are smart, they are successful because they have devoted a lot of things other than the biological superiority, right? For example, they have devoted loads of time in terms of researching, they have devoted so much hard work, they are very cooperative in terms of scientific resources, they are willing to accept ideas from different parts of the world. I think under this kind of paradigm, it's more likely to incentivize the change for people to have this kind of self-capability. It's more important to happen, right? I think this kind of substantial change are also enforced by the incentive structure. So firstly, the government is likely to identify the problems, the structural problems that these poor people are facing, right? Because we think in the status quo, when we actually wipe out the biological arbitrarily, for example, you are not successful because you are smart. It's likely for you to identify questions, for example, structural reasons that these people are facing, right? So it's actually because of the economic disparity that these people cannot succeed, not because of their IQ level. It's actually because of their living in a very patriarchal society that these girls do not have the ability to access the economic opportunities, right? And I think it's especially important for us to actually wipe out the arbitrary factors in terms of investing resources, right? And we also give the incentive structures in 3 levels. So firstly, in the government, in terms of policy changing. So it's likely for people to believe under our paradigm that we are actually as smart as the people who are really successful nowadays, right? So we actually give a bigger incentive for people to actually lobby and ask for the policy to changes. For example, to give out the same resources we have, even in the rural areas, in terms of the educational accessibility and the educational equipment, right? And we think it's also likely in terms of individual, they are know that they are actually not on the inferior according to their biological deficiency, but because of they do not have enough economic resource accessibility, right? And lastly, in terms of the family structure, I think it's very important important to know, to a very vast majority of the world, a lot of families are actually struggling about allocation resources, whether to send you to school, right? We think the examples can be when you only have limited economic capacity to invest in both of your child. It's actually for you to invest in a person that you think that is smarter. We think that the fact that you think that one person is smarter is already very arbitrary. But second of all, I think it's very, very important for you to know that both of our children is actually equal in intellectual capacity, and that's why we think we're changing the incentive structure in initially substantial change to ask people to firstly to be very confident themselves, and second to access the resources, and for the government to provide resources, right? But we think the comparative under their paradigm is that I think under their paradigm, they are only going to perpetuate this kind of political discrimination towards people who are actually not smart, right? And the fact that the perpetuation stance is actually supported by the existing discrimination, existing economic disparity, and existing patriarchal structure that these people are facing. I think under our paradigm, it's more about how you can actually maximize the intellectual capacities, not really about whether you are smart intrinsically. We think under our paradigm, we can enable the self-actualization by giving the resource allocation for the government incentive structure, individual incentive structure, and family incentive structure. We are going to change the yardstick for people to measure success. It's not really about how smart you are intrinsically, but it's all about what you are born afterwards, whether you are smart enough, whether you are hardworking enough, whether you have worked enough to conquer the structural problems. And I think only under our paradigm we can make that very efficient, very proud to propose.
The most recent breakthrough in geoengineering is when they found the chemical composition in ozone, so that they can patch ozone holes and to solve the harms of global warming when there are heat waves that are killing thousands. This is a feat that necessitates knowledge in chemistry and physics, in geology, and also engineering, with most of the people working in the research team owning 2 or 3 PhD, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, but the global average person barely passed college. We think that there's an inherent value that is owned by superintelligence that can be very useful for the problem that the world faces. I want to talk about 3 things. First, I want to talk about superintelligence and why it is something exclusive that cannot just simply be acquired by the ordinary average through hard work and cooperation and creativity. Secondly, I want to talk about empowering people, because this is the bulk of the case that comes from opening government. I want to talk about how empowering people necessitate the involvement of intelligence that exists in the outliers as well. Third and finally, I want to talk about how to solve the current most pressing world problem like climate change, problem like superbacteria, problem like world poverty, why that necessitates all these superintelligence. Let's begin with intelligence, why it's exclusive. Because there's a POI that comes from the opposing government that, oh, why can't they just utilize hard work? Why can't they just cooperate and utilize their creativity to solve the world problem? The thing is, that is not enough for a couple of reasons. Number one, it is a question of time. Because how long you study matter, ladies and gentlemen? Because it takes a huge amount of time for ordinary people to go to the extent of even mastering the subject that they are currently learning, if they are ever able to do it, right? And do work on that subject at the end of the day. But the thing is, the problem that we're facing are time sensitive. The problem of global warming is not a problem that we can give another 20 years for you to wait until you master the current engineering that you are currently doing, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we need the super intelligent that can literally graduate from Harvard before they're 15. We need the super intelligent that can take a couple of different majors at the same time and master it nonetheless. Secondly, you need to understand that there's a big difference between how the the ordinary person see a solution and how the super smart see a solution. The ability for you to come up with an innovative solution that's never before thought before is one of the most important things in this debate, because we're talking about problems that never existed before and problems that adapt to the solution that we're currently throwing at them, ladies and gentlemen. It means that you need to not only learn to replicate the solution that have been created before you, but you need to learn and realize what are the current limitations of the solution that is owned, so that you can innovate and build upon it, ladies and gentlemen. A good study case will be the development of even more efficient solar panel. One of the key questions in solar panel is how do you make the energy acquisition rate much higher so that all those heat doesn't go away and also heat up the environment at the end of the day. That requires the creation of conductors that are so advanced that the one that made it get the Nobel Prize in physics, ladies and gentlemen. That's the kind of solution that we're thinking of, and that's the kind of solution that you lose if you are only ordinary and you're only learning what the past gives to you and not innovating it. But third and finally, note that even though you also need cooperation, there are two problems if you are not part of the super smart. Number one, when you need to operate with other people to solve a very major problem, you need to have the bare minimum knowledge. And the key question is whether other people are able to reach that bare minimum knowledge of being able to work in these fields if you are not a super smart. But secondly, you also need the ability to quickly learn from other people as well. You need to have the ability that when you're doing a project and other people come with a new knowledge, you need to be able to learn and absorb it and utilize it to develop your own skills. That's something that ordinary people simply doesn't have. That's why super intelligence is oftentimes very exclusive. Now let's talk about empowering people. Because here's the thing. In opening opposition, we agree that capital is necessary to empower people. And the thing is, the unjust difference of capital between the top 1% and the bottom 50% is still a problem that exists in government bench anyway, because they're only equalizing the intelligence, but not equalizing wealth. And this is very key. In opening opposition, we are more than happy to have Bernie Sanders continue his campaign and eventually sit in the Oval Office. But what we argue here is that empowering people oftentimes also need a super intelligence that are outlier by nature, ladies and gentlemen. Why so? Number one, how do you know what is the right policy to do? How do you know what is the right hours of education? How do you know whether microfinance lending work? How do you know the right taxation rates so that companies don't pull out but the people get the redistribution that they need? This requires a huge amount of intelligence that are much higher than the global average. A good study case will be the recent Nobel Prize in Economy winner Esther Duflo. She won because of her research on randomized control trial that allows her to find out what exactly is the right school hour by doing RCTs in India and Bangladesh. What is exactly is the best way to target loan by doing research on Indonesia. And this is an innovation that do not come to the average mind because it's going against literally conventional economics for her creation in RCT. But secondly, if you want to achieve development and you want to achieve empowerment, oftentimes you also need political victory, because what you need is you need to be able to acquire a seat on power. And the thing is, oftentimes the poor are going against established power. So how to win against an established, richer power, right? If you go against the super rich, you also need political geniuses who are above the world average. You need the campaign team behind Bernie Sanders, for example, who are able to go against Wall Street by utilizing a new political innovation by relying on donation from the rank and file, donation from the layman, but eventually acquiring the biggest donation in the US campaign history. That's the kind of innovation that comes from the non-layman. Now let's engage with their idea that, oh, there's a paradigm here. You know, success comes with those that have high intelligence. Men and white people are considered to be having higher intelligence, and we don't want that kind of false paradigm. No, it is the super intelligent who break that sexist and racist myth, ladies and gentlemen. They are the one that shows that intelligence can come from every race and from every gender. How do the super intelligent break that racist and sexist myth? Number one, they are super smart in statistics. They found the statistical flaw by showing that there's a limited data set that are utilized to prove that racist point on how most people don't even realize on statistic false positives, and they spot it everywhere. Secondly, they are super intelligent in biology. They check the genetics and they manage to isolate the idea that intelligence isn't tied on the Y gene that is brought by men, but the X gene that is brought by women. It means that they show that women and male have equal chances at intelligence that they are able to achieve, and that's why gain confidence. That shows you that even such racist men are broken by the super intelligence. What does this prove to you? This proves to you that we're facing a world with lots of problems like climate machines, like super gonorrhea, like world poverty, and it requires outlier intelligence to stop it, we proudly oppose.
Problems which want to solve. First of all, we believe that intelligence is extremely very effective in approaches harmfully what the perception of itself. Second of all, we believe there is high disparity to intelligence between what elites and majority of people can understand. I believe we have to judge that. Let's first start with the opening. We believe that all object claims a lot of the influence with the try to do as any mechanism how they actually want to achieve benefits. That's what we are not discussing in our request of extension. But let's first engage with the problem. So I think that what the overall general brings is like they take one huge case for innovation. But we don't believe it's true, and we don't believe that innovation is going to be hard. Actually, we believe it can be good. Why? Look, we believe that more people in general they engage in research and stuff. Why? Because more people will be able to do research at any point. Moreover, more people will believe that they are able to make any form of the scientific work, which means that more people will engage to the science. Moreover, if majority of the work majority of the things which you can achieve as science, as a doctor, is usually based on the hard work and the amount of the time which you have to focus on read the books and get the knowledge. Look, you have much bigger motivation on our side of the house for those interviews because you believe you can achieve this, because you don't believe you are more stupid than other people. Moreover, we will have the explanation how the scientific process works is completely untrue, and the geniuses change the world only in movies. In truth, scientific advancement is usually because of the hard work of thousands of people, which make a research, which read a lot of the data, which analyze this data, and which find the facts, which analyze the tens of thousands of pages based on what is happening in the world. This analysis can help us discover the facts and the consequences, draw conclusions, which can help us to implement practical solutions, both like in hard science and social science. We believe that if we are going to show people that it is possible for them to make scientific work, they are more likely to join this effort, which means that we are going to have more effort, we are going to have more scientific investment in general. Moreover, we believe that it's easy to be cooperate with each other simply because there is not going to be a problem that people will no longer understand each other, right? People inside of those scientific teams will be able to cooperate better because they will have the same similar characteristics. Let's go to our extension of pain. Why we believe there's going to be no drama? We believe that right now a lot of people have a trauma because they don't feel as smart as other people do. Why is it important? Because we live in a capitalist society which usually values people who are smart, intelligent, and able to get the success, right? We also value the success in general. We glorify people like Sherlock Holmes in the media, in the culture. We believe that they are extremely good no matter what they do. We believe that being smart is the most important trait which person can have. Why is that? First of all, even if you are smart, you always have a feeling that there's always someone smarter than you, which means that you are always insecure about your intellectual status and about what you think. Second, some groups of like socio-economic status and so on have a perception that they are less smart than other people, which means that they are harmed from the very beginning. Moreover, some people don't have time or resources to invest in their intellectual capabilities, which means that they are also harmed from the very beginning. And we believe it's extremely tragic to your self-esteem and how you perceive yourself. Why? Because you always feel good, because you always feel insecure, because you don't have the max possible trait which you can have, which is extremely important to your performance. Look, our culture allows people to be bad person and still be glorified if they are smart. We believe that it's extremely bad, and that's why, and we believe it's going to change when I was at the house. Why? Because if everyone believes that everyone is equal, inequal, there's no longer reason to feel bad. There's no longer reason to have self-esteem because the most important part which the society judge people is gone, and everyone is equal on this regard. Which means that more people feel better and more people feel confidence, and we believe it's extremely important impact because it applies literally every person on the planet. Second point of extension. Why do you believe that there's a problem? Why do you believe that the process of lawmaking is going to be better? Look, we believe that the status quo is the problem of disparity between what elites can understand and what the common people can understand, right? Because elites can understand the common people, it's very hard for them to be relatable to the majority of the population. Because of that, the majority of the population feel alienated. Because usually elites are very likely to become arrogant to the majority of the people, which means that which has a lot of the extreme bad impacts. Why? First of all, if the elites are not relatable, people are much more likely to trust the populists and in general are much more likely to backlash from the government, right? Why? Because they feel disappointed, they feel completely disjointed from the people who are making the law and who are deciding what is right or not. Moreover, we believe that in general the whole law and the whole governing process is going to be better. Why? Because elites are going to understand what the majority of the people think and how the majority of the people what they believe and what their things are. Which means that we believe that it's going to be much more better for the majority of the population, because majority of the population are going to because elites are going to understand them better. Moreover, we believe it's going to also be bigger participation in the political process and more active. Why? Because people are going to be much more. It's going to be much more easier to relate to them, to relate to the elites. Moreover, they will think they always can be they become elites at some point, right? They always have to believe that they can become people at the very top because they no longer feel that they are stupid from the very beginning, and they always have some chance of engagement. Before I will go to the first point of my extension, I will ask you.
In your side, there are people who are richer, more stereotypically beautiful, more athletic than you. What's so different in terms
what is so different? First of all, we want to explain to you why it's just extremely important. Second of all, we explain to you why. If you feel that everyone is the same in the most important strike, you are more likely to believe that you can overcome those traits, right? You believe that you can overcome like the fact that someone is richer because they no longer have the other advantage. Third point, why people work hard? Look, even if not everything is possible, because some people are richer, some people are like from previous class, we believe that majority of the population will believe it is possible, right? Because even if it's not in fact, they will at least believe it's possible, because they will at least believe that there's like no inherent benefit of people the other classes of society. Which first of all means that more people will do science, which obviously challenge the open competition. Second of all, we believe that more people are going to choose hard jobs like medicine doctors and so on, because they don't think they are stupid from the very beginning. They don't think they are stupid when they are in the high school or something, which means that they are more likely to choose those jobs which require a lot of the hard work. Which means that we are going to have more, people doing very important jobs. First of all, we believe that in general we are going to see increased productivity. Why? Because people are going to believe that they are more likely to achieve success because they are not going to feel that they have any important drawbacks from the beginning. For all of those reasons, very proud of the course.
Closing up portion is going to talk about three main things in this speech. First of all, I want to tell you like
I will tell you like one in the absence of intelligence disparity, which means that like all people are not equally smart and or equally intelligent abilities. We think that in that world, the metrics to validate other people, the metric of people just other people going to be sick into more severe and more detrimental for the minorities, for the people in the constitution. Secondly, I will tell you like why the structural change is that the opening government want to pursue. Let us say like resources allocations or like those kind of things is less and farther harder to achieve in the how comparatively in the constitution. But last of all, I will talk about like why in the world when all people are equally smart, the strategy of common that like, no one going to take further steps to resolve the problem in the constitution. No one going to no one to self-motivate themselves to take away something that like need them to like cooperate like to further research, further study to resolve. It's less likely to be happen. But before that, couple of rebuttals. First of all, opening government believes that like all the problem in the constitution, inequality, is because people are smart in a different level, and we don't believe that is true. For instance, they talk about partiality, they talk about like family are oftentimes invest in the boy rather than in the girls, but we don't think that it's just because the boy is more smarter than the girl. But like the concept of like boys are staying with them, boy will grow up with that family and going to support back to the parent is exactly the reason why they're going to invest more for the boy in the constitution. We don't think that just because like the boy is more intelligent is the only reason that they're going to invest in that. What happened in that case? So in that case, if now girl and boy are both equally smart, it's the more likely for the parent to invest in the boy, because like the boy going to stay with them, but the girl going to get married. That is their concept, and therefore there's no feedback and there's no thing that gets better for the parent. That's why that kind of incentive just get worse in their somehow. But we think that is more likely to be better in our somehow, because when parents recognize the girl in their family is actually smarter, that she has more shot, she has more chance to be successful in society, she can earn more money than the boy. It is more incentive for the parent in that circumstance to invest in the girl in that situation. And we think that is still higher possibility that like the girl will get a better treat in that side of the house. But let's talk about closing government. Closing government believe that people will be traumatized because they are not smart enough, and therefore they can solve that in their work. Note that argument assume on the fact that like the average intelligence or like the global average scale now that all people are smart, but that's not true. Let me tell you something. The average IQ in the world now is around 100 and 110. What does this mean? It means that like in that kind of thing, like people with just enough ability to reach and to understand some kind of like trivial and like common knowledge and that's all. They cannot understand complicated things. They cannot understand how democracy look like. They cannot understand they cannot understand further about a scientific concept or like further philosophical concept. They cannot understand how society going to proceed without how society is necessary to be some problem that society necessarily need to be solved. Which means that like that you don't make people smart equally, but like you make people a little bit less smart equally in the just kind of circumstance. We don't really think that is a good word. But even if we buy that kind of thing and say that people get traumatized and feel a sense of insecurity, we think that is a good thing because it incentivizes people to strive for better. They think that like now I'm smart, I want to keep that smart, I want to be the best in the world. We think that is not exactly the motivation for science in the constitution, for scientists in the constitution to have the research to prove that they are the best in the world. No, thank you. Then we think that that's a good thing. But lastly, they said that people will be more likely to understand each other just because they have equal intelligence. We don't buy that analysis. The reason being that even if you are equally intelligent, the matter is that where you live, the culture you belong to, the background, your religion, all those kind of things are still different and still the barrier for the people to understand each other. We don't really think that is comparatively better in that side. So let's talk about the constructive. Why we think that first of all, the metric to validate people going to sit in the worst in outside. No, thank you. We think that like in the current situation, when you see a very smart people, you still have a tendency to be attracted by them, and you still have a tendency to listen by them. And to that extent, you might forget about the background. You might forget about like, whether or not they're from a poor family, or like you forget about like, whether or not they are a good or not. So intelligence is something that if you have that kind of thing in a very high amount, you're going to more likely to evaluate those people based on that kind of thing. What happened now is all people living equally and people know that's kind of thing. It's not like they will shift the evaluation into the other thing. For instance, gender, for instance, job capital, for instance, like for instance, ethnicity, which means like now if you have a poor people who have equal intelligence with the rich people, it is more likely for you to in favor of the rich people because like those will have other background, they will have other things to actually further development. Everything that's kind of magic is detrimental because now the poor in their South, we have no other way to opt out. Comparatively, at least in our South, when birth lottery gives certain poor ability that more smarter than other people. We think that circumstance, they have more chance to be evaluated better in our South. No, thank you. But secondly, we think that the structural change also be less likely to happen. Not that opening government main premises like government have incentive to allocate resources fairly. But we don't really see the mechanism of how they're going to allocate that kind of resource. We think that like government actually allocates those kind of resources based on the taxation that they give for the people. And then most of the case they tax the rich. And the reason and the premise, the justification for them to tax the rich is not to say you now are in the privileged position and that's why you have the inequality position. But the fact is now, the rich can point to that the problem and say, like, you know what, the poor also equally intelligent like us. Why have to have them? Why have to pay more money for them? Why have to pay education system for them? Because they can study as well. No, thank you. We know that it is less likely for them to give more money into resource allocation. But secondly, we think like the time spent now is different. Given that you have 100 IQs, but the rich can spend more time on learning, which means that they can spend the sky of like 100 IQ in a better way. But the poor have to work on labor force that is less likely for them, to like achieve the thing that like the rich can achieve in the prostitution. Which means like you block the only chance, the only shot for the poor, or like a significant people of the poor, like who have higher intelligence to become richer and like then get back to the community. But lastly and the most important, why we think that the tragedy of common going to happen? The reason in the project we are scientists and are focused on social issues because they feel the sense of responsibility. That is to say, they feel like they're being gifted by the SCAP intelligence, and that's why they want to give it back to the society. When you cut out the SCAP thing and you see that all people are equal, no one going to take the step and like sacrifice their time to motivate and like to research on like the thing, for instance, global warming or like climate change. That already clash with like the premise coming from closing government because they believe like if people believe that they have ability, they're going to do. But the thing is that even if they have ability, they don't have incentive to do that because like, they think that other people can do. Why I have to do that in the constitution? Why I have to do that? So therefore, we think that it is deadlocked in that kind of thing, that no one will have further step to certify their time, to like get something back to society. Very, very proud to oppose.
trying to drift people to some certain direction and try to force on them some kind of moral obligation because they were like gifted by lottery of fate, which means that these people, and this is mutually exclusive in this motion, is the inherent benefit of closing government. These people feel like they need to do something, not because they want, because they have some kind of special treatment, and they need to do this. I never heard from opening opposition why this 1% of the people who are like super intelligent will be the researchers working for climate change, or why even they should do this. I feel like people have agency, and they never prove to us how big will be like this group, or how plausible or like likelihood is that to happen. Because please remember that they are supporting status quo, and I didn't see the huge benefits in terms of the climate change or like achieving a lot of goals which they try to prove in this debate, and I have no idea how we should measure that. In terms of these stereotypes, which opening government tried to set, I think that Krzysiek added an extremely important point in terms of how this research actually happened and how stereotypization it is. If you know that was some research, that was some magic factor X, which brings people to achieving more or to being like a more smart, you are trying to find the source of these magic things, X. Probably that will be some kind of family, probably that will be some kind of background, some kind of female gene or like male gene. So for the people who are the minorities, or like for the people who couldn't achieve this, for the people who didn't have like equal chance to get this magic factor X, is detrimental and they feel extremely bad about this. We believe that that's also like inherent and mutually exclusive benefit, which Krzysiek provided in our speech, which means that the daily basis life of these people, like this, the perception of themselves, it's a little bit traumatized. They need to compare themselves to the people who are higher on that point. Not yet. I think a lot of people, which opening government tried to do us, are kind of washed on both sides of the horse or uncomparative. I also didn't see like the mechanism about like resources distribution, which like they try to achieve for opening government. But now I want to talk about opening opposition, which I think provides some kind of good case in this debate. I think that cancer still exists. I think climate change still exists. And you don't need intellectual capacity to know that your health will be important, which means that you will still be working hard, which means that people will be more able to cooperate with each other because they will be operating at the same level, which means that even if will be less top people, will be more equal people because they will see that their effectiveness will increase. Even if that will be a little bit slower or will not in the same time, will be more accessible to majority of the people and include more people to work to the benefit of all. But even if they never prove to us why this is important to give humanity, why this is important to stop the climate change, or why we should do this. I think that should be at least few sentences to make this case properly in this debate. But second of all, I think in terms of what Krzysiek also brings to you, how media will be functional, like what will be glorified instead of intellectual, which means that hard work is not irrelevant. I think that EFL Final is an excellent example because all of us worked super hard and probably didn't have like super IQ to outspoke like EPL teams in like open outros. But we still do this on a daily basis. We still believe that we can achieve this, and we still like spend some time to like prep competitions and try to develop our skills, which means that a lot of things which opening opposition want to achieve can be done and can be on an enjoyable way and can be very successful. We don't need to copy cases from Belgrade or Zagreb. We can create our own style and we still can have like an enjoyable journey at this world opening. Go.
All the rights that we defend, like confidence, self-esteem, and all that, require one to be alive. That's why the seas and countries must fall. That's why we need people like all in and let's still be around.
I can be satisfied for 10 years, still have all of my benefits with the provided can be permanent. But I think that wasn't the most important thing. The clash which happened in this debate, it's A, what is mutually exclusive, which we learned from round 8 of this competition. Second of all, it's like to which extent this innovation or like progress will happen because of this 1% of the people. We supporting maybe more people involved in innovation, maybe more accessible and less discriminatory for the people who don't have the same ability as you. We don't want to hear like people who are in the top of the top and see how you don't understand that the climate change is the thing. You can't read this, or like how you can't remember this, or how you couldn't speak in this particular way. We think that it's something which is harmful in status quo and we want to change this, or at least mitigate to a certain extent. So I think that Shishi told you like what kind of factors are driven to this and how this intellectual function. We also engage, I think, with the strongest point from both opposition teams in terms of how we will create a change. And as long as they didn't prove to us why all of these people will be following and acting for like humanitarian goals and will be like sitting in the naked research and creating data, I don't think that this case then please vote CG.
Shared identity doesn't mean that you have understanding of how the specific issue that minority have unique access to, right? Rather, we think on your side there are two problems that happen. First, less capability in solving the problem since you are less intelligent in solving those, right? In the sales school, there are people who have their sense of selection that people have like who are at the top 10% of human intelligence, that is to say, the intelligence over 130 are solving those sort of problems. Your side, you think significantly, the efficiency of solving those problems will be significantly lower. Second, we think there's less like also less room for them to have to prioritize which problem is more important, right? Because on their side, probably people will be as emotional as it's still school, right? They think high intelligence is essentially important to recognize that, oh, we cannot only follow our emotion, but recognize their levels of priority, and we think it's essentially better in solving minority issues. Then, during the opening government, I will take you after my engagement. So, opening government basically talk about two issues. First, on the issue of self-efficacy, and secondly, on how there will be changes in society. First, I think the great premise on the open government side is that they think after this motion is taken, people will be recognized fairly by their effort, right? But we think the problem essentially will not change because in this school, people are the rich people, the people are from privileged background are mistaken their privilege for intelligence. We think precisely the same thing will happen after we take away the intelligence part, but now rich people will mistaken their privilege for their hard work, right? They will say other people, those poor people, are lazy, right? We do not see structural difference on their side. They might say, oh, at least we remove something that the rich people can legitimize themselves. population are living under the society which is extremely unequal, right? We think in those societies, rich people and people in power are disproportionately strong at manipulating the social narrative in the favor of rich people, instead of saying, oh, people are equally intelligent, so therefore we should prioritize those poor people who can find their way through the social structure. OT, do you have any?
A lot of people, and especially minorities like African Americans, don't even have a incentive to use the education resources to perceive as powerful with the furniture case to empower them. So how can our program maximize their intellectual capacity?
We think in that case, in the skills school, we already have scientific studies to prove that human intelligence has no correlation with race, right? We think that it's a large mitigation to that. Secondly, I think the conclusion then about the OG's argument is essentially about how people feel that they're not as good as other people and how people will lose faith in themselves. We think the same problem will still happen on both sides because even you remove the factor of intelligence, people will think, oh, the other, those people are much more hardworking than I am, and so on and so forth, right? Then, it's the essential extension from my partner that has been clear absolutely no rebuttal from the opposing government. That is, how people will evaluate others and the incentive of people interact with other people will change. How does this look like? My partner told you that in this school, people have incentive to appreciate the intelligence of other people. They may appreciate, a very smart people of ethnic minority background, a very smart people from poor background. People have that incentive because they think that other people might have unique information and unique insight on the world and on the society. But you remove that incentive on your side because now people think everyone else is as smart as I am, right? If some poor people are able to climb up the social ladder, the internal psychology here in the rich people is that, they're just more smart, they're just more hardworking than me, right? This requires nothing from rich people to have incentive to interact with people because the rich people will think, if I want to be better, I just need to work harder, right? I do not need to learn from those poor people. I do not have to learn from ethnic minority in order to become better, right? So that removes the incentive for the rich to interact with people from the minority background. We think that is detrimental because the interaction and the appreciation of how minorities are better than you, and they can provide unique insight in the society, and how as the consequence of that, we can tie intelligence minority as its important position in the society is essentially important and can have changes in our society. Ladies and gentlemen, in the end of the day, on their side, no changes would happen at all. At best, some people will feel bad, but comparatively on our side, we think it's much, much better. Very proud.